Good morning, people. Today we're moving on to the objection to dualism, which is that regarding the problem of other minds. So we're going to be looking at, well, what is this powerful and important objection to dualism? What is the issue going on here? We're going to be able to then look at Gilbert Ryle, who was a key proponent of this viewpoint, and also reflect a little bit on Wittgenstein and the way he framed the problem or framed the objection. In many ways, this links in with skepticism more generally, and the philosophical position of solipsism is very relevant here, and even touching a bit on idealism. So there's quite a lot of interconnectedness between this and other areas in philosophy. However, nonetheless, this is a clear part of the syllabus you need to become very strong on. So, the problem of other minds. Well, what's all the fuss about? Telepathy. Superheroes often has this power, the power to read other people's minds. Wow, what an amazing thing that would be if you could see inside someone's mind and see what they're thinking, what they're feeling, to be able to directly. And it's no surprise that this is a superpower in many sci-fi films, because it just simply can't happen. You're not able to see inside other people's minds, not directly. Similarly, there's loads of sci-fi situations where maybe powerful aliens from other planets can control other minds. And again, the reason why this is a great idea in sci-fi is because it simply can't happen. One mind cannot directly influence, control another mind. So there seems to be this gap between minds. Gilbert Ryle, he's articulated it with the following quote. And rather than reading this out, I'm actually going to refer to the anthology. There is thus a popular opposition between mind and matter, as opposition which is often brought out as follows. Material objects are situated in a common field known as space, and what happens to one body in one part of space is mechanically connected with what happens to other bodies in other parts of space. But mental happenings occur in insulated fields known as minds. There is, apart maybe from telepathy, no direct causal connection between what happens in one mind and what happens in the other. Only through the medium of the public physical world can the mind of one person make a difference to the mind of the other. The mind in its own place and in his inner life, each of us lives the life of a ghostly Robinson Crusoe. People can hear and jolt one another's bodies, but they are irremediably blind and deaf to the working of one another's minds and inoperative upon them. So I think that's probably one of the more accessible quotes from the anthology, because what that is there is explaining that that our minds are really not able to directly influence each other in the way that the physical world is. So that notion is there's just one shared physical world that everything belongs to, but then we're in these insulated minds, separate from one another, unconnected, no direct causal connection. Now you could argue, yes, we can connect between minds, but only when we enter the physical world. So there's no way that minds can directly know about other minds. There's no way that minds can directly affect other minds. There is no telepathy. There is no telekinesis. There is no ways that mind control. And it's only when through the physical realm that we can connect with each other. And he gives this lovely kind of poetic image of we live as a Robinson Crusoe, each of us on our own desert island, completely separate. So minds are like the person Robinson Crusoe, stranded on an island on his own, and we're all separate from that. So you get in a sense the problem. So and again, this really hinges on dualism, because if we're a physicalist and we say, well, there is no minds, in a sense, separate entities, there is just bodies, there's just brains. Well, then of course brains are all connected. Brains can influence each other. The physical things in the physical world all connected, and maybe we don't know at the moment how one brain can influence another brain directly, but actually in theory, then once our neuroscience gets there, of course it makes sense that brains can connect with other brains, and all sorts of wonderful or frightening possibilities emerge for the future. But if we do believe, if we're dualists, then there is a body separate from the mind. So therefore, that then gives us the problem. How can we know that other minds, how can we know anything about the minds of others? If they're purely physical, of course we can learn about other minds. We can, we can open people's heads, or we can scan them, and we can look at all sorts of things in the brain. So of course we can know about the brains of other people, yeah? So if the mind is the brain, that's no problem. So the problem only arises for the dualist, because if the mind isn't the brain, we can learn about the brain, but how do we access the mind of others? How do we know what's going on, or can be certain about what's happening in the minds of other people? And actually, more radically, how can we even know that other minds exist? If other minds are not physical entities, they're not the same as the brain, how can we be certain they exist? This is the problem. I'm going to ask you to do this reading task, because there's quite a lot of detail in the Stanford on this. But before, let's just think a little bit about Wittgenstein. Wittgenstein describes the problem in quite a powerful way. He says, imagine a scenario where everyone has a box, and everyone inside their box has a beetle, and no one is allowed to look in anyone else's boxes. So we've all got a beetle inside a box. Is there any feasible way we could ever know that we've all actually got the same thing as a beetle in a box? We are all referring to something in our boxes, but without being able to actually open the boxes, we could all be talking about something different. We could all think we have a beetle in the box, and we're all referring to something as a beetle in the box, and language is being used as a game to refer to something inside this box. But actually, there is no way we can ever tell what it is precisely in each of the boxes. That's Wittgenstein's way of expressing the problem of other minds. Okay, so what I'd like to do is, as a reading task, I'd now like you to go onto the Stanford Encyclopedia. So get as far as you can. Don't read all of it. Just read the first few sections, link in. The problem, if you just put in Stanford, other minds, the problem of other minds, and get a nice overview from that. Once you've done that, I want to do a little bit more further research, look at the textbook, go back over the problem of other minds. I want you to get really strong on your understanding of it, and then on Friday we're going to come back and we're going to do some responses to the problem of other minds. So please spend at least half an hour, maybe even an hour on that reading and additional research. But actually, what I'd really like you to do is catch up and make sure you're up to date with all your homework tasks. There should now be 5 pieces that you've submitted electronically. There's the zombie argument and the knowledge Mary argument. So I want you to explain them. Half a page, maybe a full page on that. Then I want you to do a decent piece on the criticisms of the knowledge Mary argument. We did a lot, so I want you to really do a strong piece on the criticisms of knowledge Mary argument, all the responses. Due today, we've got the qualia. Just explain what are qualia. Again, the Stanford is really good going in for detail to help you pad it out, but please put it into your own words. Read it, research, then go away and write it independently. Do not copy bits out of textbooks or off the internet. That's pointless. And finally, the homework that I set last Friday, if you could continue working on that, we're coming up with 4 arguments against the existence of qualia. 3 were given, so I want you to try and articulate and explain the 3 arguments. They are tough, so some further reading, thinking is required on that, maybe for some of you. And then I'd like you to see if you can come up with either your own original argument against qualia, or alternatively, you might research a separate argument on qualia. Alternatively, if you really can't, then maybe for your 4th, you could put a strong argument in favour of qualia, and why qualia are a useful piece of our conceptual apparatus.